Preston, I have a question for you.
Hit me.
Does this year, is it on track to be the most you have traveled covering Virginia sports ever?
Man. I don't travel as much and I mean I've asked the powers that be in the Sabre department, but I don't know if Brazil is in the budget.
Right?
It's definitely going to be the most that Virginia has traveled. I'll tell you that for sure.
Yeah.
Man, what a wild schedule, man.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, 2025, 2026, this academic year, Virginia has done so much traveling across the United States. And then on top of that, if we hopefully keep the trajectory we've had, we'll travel as much as we have and then all the way to Brazil.
There we go. Yeah, no, it's I mean, just I keep going back to it just between football season, now basketball season. We'll see, I also cover spring sports and baseball and everything. That's kind of my main thing. Yeah, I can't fathom that we had this kind of season for football and now basketball's having this kind of season, and I can only hope baseball has this kind of season too. Like, it's
Right.
just a good time to cover sports after last year was such a bad time to cover sports. Like, I remember walking out of Lane Stadium, 2 Decembers ago,
Yeah.
and it was cold as it. I'll get out, like it always is in Blacksburg. But
Right.
I was walking up the hill, and I'm just like, this is terrible. Why did I come all the way here? Like, uh, no one's gonna read my story. No one's gonna care about this. The podcast, and yeah, just to be, 360 where Virginia ended this season, just incredible.
Yeah, and with that, our guest tonight is a guest who I've been really, really looking forward to having on the 4-3-4 defense. He is a man who has the fastest Twitter fingers I have ever seen. He gets stories out before anyone else in news out. I provide a lot of editorializing, whereas the actual news comes from our guest tonight, the incomparable Preston Willett from the Sabre. Preston, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, Deuce. I appreciate you having me. Appreciate the compliments. Like, sometimes I don't think I'm fast enough. Like, sometimes I think I'm slagging a little bit. I'm getting up there. I have three kids. I think they're slowing me down a little bit, but I try my best, man. I try my best, doing it all.
Well, I have your tweets like on notification, which to our viewers, you should have Preston's tweets so you know things before your friends do. And I'm like, wow, that came out fast.
I, you know, and I got a lot of other people's tweets on notifications too, just to keep me updated too. But sometimes I think it's too much. Sometimes I'm like, maybe I should, slow down a little bit. But yeah, no, it's fun, and I just, honestly, like, I don't think a lot of people know. Like, I grew up around Virginia sports. My grandfather was a UVA alum, and then I went off to college. I went, cover news and all, in other parts of the country, and kind of came back to it, and it was kind of weird because it was like I was coming back into it as a journalist, and that's kind of how I've maintained it. But I think some of that, like, the optimism and spirit I try to bring to it, is more for the fans. Like, I want, I think there's so many people that talk about these days, like, oh, like, sports journalists, they don't care about the sport.
Yeah.
They're so negative and everything. Like, I love the sport. I love covering the sports, and that's kind of what I try to bring. And so. Yeah, I'm not trying to spin anything. I'm not trying to, be negative for no reason. Like, if I have to be, it's for a good reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that's made this year so special at Virginia is even the most straightforward AP Newswire style headlines and stories that get put out. I think there's such an appreciation for how special this year has been that I think it just seeps through in all avenues, no matter what type of content it is.
Yeah, Cabman's nodding along with you right there. So,
Exactly. But I mean, hopefully I can keep the Commonwealth Cup. So this is a dual bobblehead. On the other side of this, there's a VT. So I'm hoping that I can just keep that V Saber facing forward the whole time as the owners of the Commonwealth Cup.
that's good. I've never seen that one before.
That this was an elite Christmas gift. Thank you, Mom. But Preston, you have done such an awesome job interviewing so many people involved with Virginia sports, whether it's incoming players, current players, that I guess the shoe's on the other foot this time. So you alluded to your background with Virginia sports. I'd love to know more about like your background with Virginia sports, your history following the team, and now covering the team itself.
I mean, no, I appreciate it, and I'm very, humbled that you say that. It's just when I started the Who's On podcast, it's almost going on 2 years now. When I started it up, I wanted to have conversations because I missed having those conversations with people, just like you would like calls a friend on the phone and just talk about sports or just catch up and stuff. So I missed
Yeah.
having that kind of format and. That's kind of why I started the podcast. But yeah, like sports has always been a big part of my life. Like I mentioned before, my grandfather, who passed away a few years ago, was a huge Virginia fan. He grew up, he had season tickets. So my introduction to sports, not even just Virginia sports, but sports in general, was. I'm trying to. I think it was 2002, and I'm sometimes I feel like I get the year wrong, but 2002, Virginia was hosting North Carolina. They went down by like I don't remember, like 20, 30 points in the first half, and they came back and won the game
Yes,
against
that I think
against
that was 2002.
and that was my first ever game. And I was just like, this is awesome. Like I want to
Right.
come back and do this again and again. And I actually had like a nice little streak there where like every home game I went to, they won.
Yeah.
And that was part of 2003 when they beat Virginia Tech. I was there for that one too. So I was like, this is great. They win every single time I come.
Right.
And I had like a thing with my grandfather because one time we missed the Adventures of Cabman coming into the stadium one time, and it was against like Miami. I don't even know if it was a game they were favored to win, but we missed it, and that was the first loss I'd ever seen. And I was
Oh,
like, it's because we missed the Adventures of Cabman, Granddad. Like
exactly.
that's why they lost. But yeah, that's kind of where the passion for sports kind of began, and like I've had it all throughout. Like I am a fan of so many different sports, and I watch and consume as much as I can. And went off to Elon, worked down in Augusta, Georgia. Got to cover the Masters for a couple years there, and cover some South Carolina, Georgia football too. And then
Nice.
came back to Charlottesville just because it was closer to home, and I was
Yeah.
like. Well, this is weird. Like, this is a weird feeling coming back to it. Like, I'd kind of kept up with UVA sports while I was gone, and so I had a good idea of things that were happening, but then it was like, all right, I got to transition. I got to put on kind of the journalist hat, so to say, and kind of cover it that way. So yeah, it's been crazy, and that was 2017. So we're coming up on almost 10 years being back on the beat. So it's been great.
That's awesome. I mean, 2017, it was a very similar-ish time to where we were kind of in between last year
Yeah.
and this year. Things are starting to go in the right direction. And then 2018, 2019, bolt of lightning almost off the sheer dynamism of guys like Ty Jerome and Bryce Perkins and all of those amazing players. And then, what was it like when Virginia kind of entered that lull period in the immediate aftermath before this incredible year?
So it was so strange because you could feel right after 2019, Virginia wins the national championship in basketball. Virginia goes to the Orange Bowl for in football and wins the ACC Coastal Division title. Like everything UVA athletics was trending up,
Yeah.
and it was kind of like COVID hit, and you could just feel kind of everything sink down and like I'm not even like I think it was just a COVID started it, but like there was just a lot of different variables that kind of hit right after that, and of course, then eventually, back in 2022, Bronco Mendenhall steps away, and you know, the basketball had already kind of slid down a little bit, and it just wasn't the same, and it was funny because I look back and like a lot of people came to Charlottesville after that 2019 year, and they were like we're here to cover a national championship winning basketball program, a football program that's on the rise. I think back like they're supposed to play in Atlanta against Georgia that next year, and it's
Yes,
like
that's right.
that never happened because of COVID. But like everything was trending up, and then things just kind of slowly fell apart. And so last year was like that was like we're back now where we were in 2019, where
Yeah.
you have a football program that wins a program record 11 wins or 11 games, and a basketball team that's going back to the NCAA tournament, and not just making the NCAA tournament, is expected to go far in the NCAA tournament, make a run.
Yeah.
So we are I'm not going to say the U is back, but it feels like it's back to that 2019 feeling where things are on the rise.
And it's interesting because this is now the round of coaches that Dr. Carla Williams has hired. These are her coaches that are implementing what her vision for the athletics program is. And I'm sure for people, and including even myself back in like 2021, 2022, I was like, where are we going as an athletics department? As much as Tony Elliott has gotten his flowers, Ryan Odom for getting off to a fast start, I think Carla Williams deserves an incredible amount of credit for the work that she's done.
Yeah. No, and there was a time last year, just last year, like it wasn't even that long ago, where
Right.
there was a lot of doubt, a lot of uncertainty about her future, and she had a contract that was about to come up, and what was she going to get renewed? Virginia didn't even officially announce that she got a renewal. Like that's how kind of shaky things were at the time. Like they didn't want to like go out on that limb, and then we could even take it to baseball. Brian O'Connor leaves to take a job down in Mississippi State, and
Yep.
that kind of throws things into a flux. But what they have done in the last year, and I'll say 2 years, because a lot of this is you got to build to it.
Yeah.
With the infrastructure for football, getting that new building, the new athletic facility there for football, the football operations center. And kind of building the front office model with Tyler Jones and Justin Sparrows there to kind
Mhm.
of get that going into the modern age of college football where you've got to build a roster. Like it's
Right.
not something that you do in recruiting high schoolers anymore. It's something you have to do kind of year round, and it's much more like the professional model. But then also with the basketball hire with Ryan Odom, like that, I mean, easy slam dunk. Chris Pollard, baseball, easy slam dunk. Like she is doing the right things right now, and she deserves a whole lot of credit for where athletics as a whole is at Virginia, but especially football, because don't
Yes.
forget she was hired to fix the football program, and so to get them to this point now, huge kudos to her.
Absolutely. Was that something that you could, obviously, you can never fully predict 11 wins, program record. Was that something covering the team and being on that beat where you felt that, okay, things are going in the right direction? If we just clear a couple more roadblocks, we're going to be in good shape? Because for a fan from a distance like myself, I'm not covering the beat on the daily in Charlottesville. Was that really visible that you could see kind of on, you can kind of see it on the faces of the people, right?
Deuce, I'll be honest with you. I felt like I was one of the most optimistic people about their, ability going into last season. I projected them for 8 wins.
Yeah.
I didn't see anyone that had more than 8 wins. I saw a lot of people that had six, a lot of people that had seven, some people even had five. But 8 wins kind of seemed like the threshold. Maybe someone had nine out there that I don't even know. But there was not a very high bar, and like go back and look at the ACC preseason poll. Like people had them very low in the conference, and certainly you had higher expectations, and you expect them to get to a bowl game. Um, because of what they are done in the transfer portal, and also just the schedule. Like, let's be honest, like the schedule was pretty favorable for them to have a season like that.
Yeah.
But even then, like no one expected them to be able to take care of business on a week out, weekend basis. Even when you have an easy schedule, you still have to go out and take care of business. And that's something Virginia's had some easy schedules in the past, and
Yeah.
they haven't done it. But they were able to do it last year because and I'll go back. Like I remember, having some people, connected to the program, like walk past me and be like, oh, talking about something out in like out in December or January, and they're like, oh, well, we're gonna be in like the college football playoff, or we're gonna be in Charlotte at the ACC championship. Like they had the placards in for the schedule in the football operations center that had dates saved for the ACC championship game and for the college football playoff and so on. So there was a lot of internal confidence, but no one externally that I know could have seen that coming.
I thought we were going to have an awesome 7-8 win season. I thought I was going to have the time of my life at the Beef O'Brady's Bad Boy Mowers Bowl, maybe back at Tropicana Field or something like that.
And
Um,
you would have taken that happily
oh,
before the season.
absolutely. And the other part is, we play in the ACC, not the SEC. So hypothetical matchups are not something we deal in. You can only play the schedule that you get from
Yeah.
the conference. And so the fact that we did take care of business, I think is a massive testament. I think, people underestimate how much people play up or down to their schedules. And so the ability of Coach Elliott to get that team to play and, shoot, we've got another decent, reasonable schedule next year. So I think there's a decent shot that I've said if we follow this up with 8 or 9, I feel really good about where we're at. I don't think it's reasonable to expect 11 or 12 at any point. That's bonus.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. If they can follow it up with another 8 or 9 win season, like that's sustainability. That's building something year on year out. Because what is the number one thing people are going to be saying about this Virginia team going to next year? Was it just a 1 year wonder? Was this just a one hit thing where you got the right mix of guys, you got the right guys, you got a Chandler Morris, you got a Mitchell Melton, you've got the right veteran pieces of Jamari Taylor, and it just worked last year,
Yeah.
and it was a good schedule, and it kind of laid out that way for you. If you can come back next year and it is another manageable schedule, a little bit tougher. They got some really tough road games out there. You got to go to Florida State, to SMU, at Wake Forest, who really turned it on towards the end of the year. And then we're going to get the first matchup with James Franklin down in Blacksburg at the end of the season. And if they can win that game, especially, but also keep that forward momentum going, like that is when people are going to really sit up on their seats and be like, okay, what's happening in Charlottesville now? Like we saw that last year, but we thought that was just one thing. Can this continue to go?
Speaking of the next football season, obviously Tyler Jones, Justin Spiros, Tony Elliott, they hit the transfer portal again for a lot of really good talent. You had a chance to interview so many of these guys, and it was an awesome chance to meet a lot of the incoming new Cavaliers. Asking for a favorite is probably unfair, but what were some of the highlights? What were some of the most interesting moments to you interviewing this incoming class of transfers?
Yeah, I did a couple, and honestly, the very first one that I interviewed was probably the one that kind of surprised me and interested me the most, and that's the cornerback from Rutgers, Jacoby Henderson. Um,
Yes.
Came off really genuine and mature, and just like was came from a really tough situation at Marshall when their coach kind of gets booted at the end of the season, even though he had been really successful there.
He was awesome.
Yeah, yeah, really good coach. And he was like, yeah, I didn't even have things packed, and I was just like, where do I go? And so he ended up at Rutgers, and it was a just terrible Rutgers defense last year, like one of the worst in the country. But if you look at the statistics and you look at the analytics and stuff, like he really stood out there,
Yeah.
and was a pretty good cornerback in the Big Ten. So he's someone that I'm intrigued by coming in. I hate to stick with corners here, but Emilio Agard, the transfer from Wisconsin, I think he's going to get on the field like immediately. Like he's a
Yes.
guy, he's going to be a really good player for them, and a guy that has multiple years of eligibility. Like last year Virginia didn't get a lot of transfers that had multiple years. So those are two of the guys that I talked to that I really enjoyed, and I really think will be pretty good players for this Virginia team next year. One guy I didn't talk to, but I'm really high on going into this year. And probably not the direction most people go, but is Deshaun Martin from Kent State. I
Ooh,
think
yes.
I think and it's like, you don't want to just make the comparison because of the school, but there's a lot of Trell Harris to his game. And if you look
Yes.
at the yards per catch, it's the exact same that Trell Harris had before he came. And the numbers are just like eerily similar to what Trell Harris had before he got to Virginia. And like Trell Harris's first year, he could have put up numbers like he did last year
Oh
had
yeah.
he been healthy that whole year. Like he was on pace to be maybe their top receiver along, and that was a team with Malachi Fields, who was a really good player and guy that
Yes.
I'd covered since he was a freshman in high school. But yeah, I think that Deshaun Martin is one that's going to kind of go a little bit under the radar at first, but I really like his potential in this UVA offense.
I think you can see in I watched more Kent State Golden Flash football than I think I have ever watched in my life because their 5-7 campaign was a bona fide miracle. And you could see that there was a serious level of toughness to that roster. And, I think he was one of the leaders in that regard, and that they really had some junkyard dogs that were ready to
Yeah.
grind a game out. And, on the defensive back front, Coach Cox, Coach Rudd, Coach Brown coming in. these guys have done a really good job of integrating a whole new bunch of defensive backs.
Yeah.
And as an offensive lineman, I don't like defensive backs. But this group of defensive backs has won me over.
Yeah. I mean, you got to start if you're going to talk defensive backs. You got to start with Brandon Hillman, the safety they
Yes.
got from Michigan. Like
Oof.
the dude he's going to lay some dudes out this year for Virginia, and was just a really important player for them because he was kind of like I'll compare it to an offensive lineman from last year. He was kind of like the Monroe Mills of this class of like, oh, that was a statement signing right there. Like, oh,
Yes.
they went out and got that guy from another Power Four program, especially one like Michigan, a guy that had started football games at Michigan. And I think he even earned some all conference honors there too. Like, that is a guy, and especially coming back home to his home state of
Yeah.
Virginia, I think that's where you got to start in the secondary, but they brought in a lot of guys, and I think it's interesting what they're doing this year. Not to get too far off track, but you mentioned John Radzinski and Kareem Cox. They have a new addition back there with Shadon Brown, who
Yes.
was a senior defensive analyst last year. He's been a defensive coordinator in other spots before, but having a dedicated corners coach to free up Kareem Cox a little bit more to focus on the safeties and free up John Radzinski more to focus on the defense.
Right.
And Shadon, from everything I've heard from talking to some of those recruits, like Henderson or Agard, like he was really key in their recruitments. And he was a guy they almost lost this offseason. He was about to go to Memphis and be on their coaching staff. So I don't think that's underrated in just adding another kind of guy in that defensive backs room to kind of, lessen the burden on John Radzinski and also kind of bring a new voice in there.
Those analyst roles have been really critical for Virginia. Obviously, Joey Ork getting promoted to the offensive line job.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people imagine the analyst role as a guy who's sitting in some dark office watching film or dissecting signs, or he's just up in the box. With my dad actually did an analyst year at Michigan.
Okay.
And those guys are so involved on
Yeah.
such a key level that, I think that it makes it a really easy transition for into a position coach role. And, I think it's helped Coach Elliott really keep a lot of consistent messaging within the program. And so, I'm sure it's going to be really, really exciting to watch. And man, Coach Huff almost struck again, getting him over to Memphis.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly, and that's why like people kept talking about him in the recruiting process. I was like, I thought he went to Memphis, and then like I see like he's still at Virginia, and oh, okay, now he's going to be the cornerbacks coach. But yeah, like people got former head coaches as analysts this days, and like Nick Saban was the king of this forever at Alabama. Like he would just be like, oh, you just got fired at your job, come be an analyst with me for a year, and then like you'll get a head coaching job the next year. Like, yeah, the analysts it's a word not a lot of people understand, but that can mean almost anything these days.
Right. And it can be what you make it. For Saban, it's a way to get fresh football minds in the building, add new talent, add an extra name. Whereas Coach Elliott seems to be taking a different approach and, hey, let's find, say, a young coach like Coach Ork and develop them into someone who's ready to take on a power four position coaching
Yeah.
job, or Coach Brown, like, let's really develop this. And the other thing that I think was really interesting, and I want to hear your take on, is on the back of Hillman, also guys like Peyton Lewis. It seemed like there was a definite intention to announce to the college football world that Virginia is no longer going to be looking at Virginia recruits as, okay, that guy just got away. Someone
Yeah.
came in from out of state. Let's figure out a way to keep kids in the Commonwealth. And welcoming these guys back, I think, is going to be a huge part of it.
No, you hit on a story I'm actually working on right now is that it's one thing like everyone's like why is Virginia bothering to recruit some of these top guys that are coming out of Virginia? Like they're never going to land them. They're going to go to Penn State. They're going to go to Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, wherever, Ohio State. Why bother? Well, it's
Mhm.
because it's like the boomerang effect. It's like you don't get them the first time, but they might come back around to you, and that's kind of exactly what Tony Elliott said about both Brandon Hillman and Peyton Lewis. Like those are two guys that they recruited so hard and they had such good relationships with. But obviously, and Elliott admits to it, like Virginia wasn't ready for a Peyton Lewis. Virginia
Yeah.
wasn't ready for a Brandon Hillman. guess what? They are now. And so those guys coming back, like that's intentional.
Yeah.
And they've done that a lot. I know his career or his year at Virginia didn't turn out great, but Chris Tyree is another one from
Yeah.
Notre Dame. Another example, Andre Green, who just transferred this offseason, is another former highly touted guy that they brought back in. So this has been a thing that they have done is like guys that got out of Virginia. They didn't get that first time around, but they're going to come back around and, they're going to keep that relationship going. That's why, high school recruiting isn't just getting the guy now anymore. It's, can I get the guy later too? Can I keep those relationships going?
It's now become almost like being on the recruited athlete side of things. If you're a prospect and you get a Twitter DM from a coach at Christopher Newport or Maritime or any of these D3 schools, you never know if that guy's going to get a Power Five job. And if you
Yeah.
said, "Oh man, I'm too good for you," all of a sudden, that's the importance of keeping good relationships. And it seems as though Virginia has done a really good job of maintaining those positive relationships with guys so that if they do want to come back to Virginia, the door is there. And I think Hillman and Peyton Lewis are going to be massive for this team coming back next year.
Yeah, they're both going to be impact guys. We talked about Hillman, but Peyton Lewis, the thing that's so impressive about him is his size. I mean, he's like
Yeah.
6'1", 220 something. But then he's also like a really fast runner. Like I was talking, it's so funny. Like I was talking to someone who lives in like the Salem, Roanoke area, and it's like, have you seen the? Oh, you cover Virginia. Have you seen this Peyton Lewis kid? I'm like, I actually saw him in high school, and he was like, yeah, he's really good. Like everyone in the Roanoke area knows about Peyton Lewis. Like he was a really good football player, and I saw him. I think it was Salem and Louisa County. I covered a game there, and when they played. But yeah, Peyton Lewis is a really special kid, and that running back room overall, like golly, the depth in that room. I've never seen it. And like I thought
Yeah.
last year they were in a good spot with Jamari Taylor, Harrison Whaley, Xavier Brown, Noah Vaughn. Now you're talking about Peyton Lewis, Jaquel Middlebrook from Middle Tennessee State or
Yep.
Middle Tennessee, and Solomon Beebe from UAB, and Xavier Brown and Noah Vaughn, and Zay Davis, who was really good in the
I was
Gator
impressed with
Bowl.
Zay. I think he'll be an impact special teams guy. I could see him being like our Eli Wood of the
Yeah.
2026 season, just a guy who forces his way onto the football field.
And I was talking about this with Ahmad Hawkins on the flight home that next day. Like Zay, like maybe not the explosiveness that we saw from Xavier Brown as a freshman, but like that same similar running style. Like he's got a really good eye for the holes, and he kind of really bursts through them once he finds them.
Yeah. I mean, in many respects, I thought the 2025 team was a throwback in many respects. And it reminded me of the teams that you and I were introduced to Virginia football watching. And I can't help but think of, man, we could rotate Alvin Pierman and Wally Lundy and just have this stable of running backs over and over again.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel good that we have that again, as well as just a dominant offensive line. I mean, you and I both know the offensive lines that we were blessed enough to watch in those days, and I hope that we maintain that same level because if we can do that, man, Peyton
Yeah.
Lewis is going Peyton Hillis on that
Man,
one season.
you took it for granted, man. Like, DePrickashaw Ferguson and Elton Brown and Eugene Monroe and Zach Yarbrough and Brandon Albert. Like, golly, like all those guys, like they're in the NFL for a good bit. Like, yeah, it was a really good team, really fun team. And yeah, this season did bring you back. Like, I think a couple of times I was like rubbing my eyes and I was like, oh, that's only one three. It's not two threes. It's Jamari Taylor. It's not Wally Lundy out there.
Exactly.
But like that nose for the end zone, that's what you saw as a kid from Wally Lundy. And like, that's what you saw from Jamari Taylor last year. But yeah, that's a really good shout. Just the similarities between what those teams were back then and just kind of the physical nature of them.
We had Monroe on the pod a few weeks back, and you could
Yeah.
just see his pride welling up. He was like, "This is the Virginia football that I've wanted to watch for years and years."
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Yeah, I think back to that. Yeah, I talk to friends sometimes, and I'm like, this offensive line that Virginia has coming up this year, I keep being like, is it the best offensive line since those guys were on the field? Probably. Like, you've
Yeah.
got, I think it's the first time. I did this research a while ago, so forgive me if I'm a little rusty on the stats, but it's the first time since 1998 that Virginia returns two all ACC offensive linemen, and that's Mikhail Boley and Noah Josie on the left side.
Man.
That doesn't even account for, um, you know, uh, Drake Metcalf at center, or Monroe Mills on the right side, or Michaelan Thomas, both those guys who missed last year, who I think
Yeah.
just those guys could have pushed Mikhail Boley for playing time last year. So
Right.
yeah, and then they got some good depth too. So like that offensive line is gonna be really good, and it credit to Tony Elliott because one of the things I'll give credit to my colleague Chris Wright at the Saber, our editor. He pointed out like in those offensive line, like at practice, like yes, Terry Heffernan, he's the voice, he's the guy leading that, but he wasn't the only guy coaching them up out there. Like Joey Ork was very involved, and you could see that any practice you went out there, saw the offensive lineman, because normally like the offensive line is not in one group together; it's in multiple groups because you have so many
Yes.
guys. Outside of Tony Elliott's first season, you have so many guys.
Right.
Elliott's first season, they might have had five or six total, but
For
yeah,
our
they're
viewers, typically you have offensive line coach, assistant O line coach. One or the other will have centers, guards, and tackles will be the other. So
yeah.
typically that's the division of labor.
Yeah. And so like Joey Ork was heavily involved in those offensive line practices. And so like it was just a natural fit. And it speaks to Drake Metcalf, like has been very vocal in his support on social media of Joey Ork. And like we always joke, Drake Metcalf is like mini Terry Heffernan. So like it
Yeah,
obviously spent so much of his career with him. So that's a ringing endorsement from him.
absolutely. I mean, when you get, I have a feeling this will involve the offensive line in some way with this question. When you're watching the 2025 football season, what was the moment where you thought, okay, this feels a little bit different? Like this might be something special. I think most people can circle on one game, but everyone's had a different moment. I want to hear yours.
I That's surprising because like the one moment I like before I even finish the question, it's that drive against Florida State when they went 10 straight plays without throwing a pass and they just ran it down Florida State's mouth because Chandler Morris had injured his hand on the drive. Like that's the stuff of lore. Like that's the stuff that you're talking about 10, 20 years from now. You're like, you remember that one time Virginia couldn't throw a pass that game because Chandler Morris had injured his hand and they just kept running the football and they scored a touchdown in that drive. Like, yeah, that's the drive that I was like, these guys got a little something different to them. Like they're here for the fight. And I know Florida State season went the way it did, but I still think it was a talented team and just something about when that Florida State team gets punched in the mouth for the first time, like the
Yeah.
last couple of years, they just kind of like die down the stretch, and that's what's happened with Mike Norvell's team. And obviously, he's really on the hot seat going into this next year.
Yeah.
But I still go back to that, and I think that was a really impressive moment, and in the moment that I was like, this is different.
Well, and 50,000 people in the stadium, including 100 some odd Seminoles, knew that they were running the ball. They
Everyone knew.
knew that no one would be worth throwing the ball. So, like, I won't take any excuses from Florida State because they knew that we were running the ball.
Yeah, yeah, and they just that was the most impressive part of the season for me. And I'm not always the best at remembering exact plays and stuff, but man, I remember that entire drive.
The pad pop between Earl Little and Jamari Taylor.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine what that was like in the stadium, but on the TV broadcast, it was the loudest pad pop I've ever heard on a television broadcast. It was
yeah.
ridiculous.
We all thought Taylor was down. Like we could hear it from where we were, and we're like, all right, that was that he's down. But then there he goes.
I mean, and then you go to the Virginia Tech game. That was the game I went to this year at Scott Stadium. That went so much differently than I thought it was going to. I thought that was going to be a complete rock fight.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, the weight lifted off my shoulders by like the sec once Jamari Taylor threw to Sage Ennis, I was like, oh wow, this
Yeah,
is
and that
really different.
yeah, no, you could kind of tell right after that and the start that they had I mean even getting like the first play of the game on the kickoff, like pinning Tech back there. I don't know what the Virginia Tech returner was thinking, but I think it showed like this is really not a good Tech team, but oh yeah, this is a good UVA team.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to like overlook like yeah, this was not the greatest Tech team either, but no, I thought Virginia it should be that way because that team didn't have any of the baggage that these past teams have had against Virginia Tech. So why should they go in and be afraid or nervous that they're going to mess up or anything? Like, um, and that's what you hope that maybe that starts something within the program with all the guys coming back from last year. That like okay, like it's just Virginia Tech. It's just our rival. Like you can go and you can compete against those guys any day, any year.
Yeah.
And you hope that you hope there's no new streaks starting on the other side.
Is there a special Wi-Fi connection or signal booster if you have a media credential? Because
No.
when I left the game, boom, all the tweets from you, from Jackie, from Ballhawk, from everyone started loading up. I had zero service the entire game.
Yeah.
I was like,
No. No. Like on the field, I was trying to send tweets forever, and I eventually just had to give up and go back in because we had to get ready for the post game anyway. Even though it was going to take forever to get Tony Elliott and all the players over there to the post.
right?
Yeah, no, there was no chance that game or Florida State that you were going to send any kind of picture video out on the field.
When you roll into Charlottesville on that day, you were like, "Oh wow, this is big time college football again." You can't send any text. Cell phone service is crashing. I ended up trying to take the bus out to the medical campus, and that took like 2 hours. Me and the people on the bus were watching the
Yeah.
SMU Cal game, like, and rolling into the town, you could feel like that palpable sense. I mean, you're on the ground almost every day. Was the sense of difference that I felt that apparent to you as well, of how different that game felt
Just pregame or postgame?
pre-game?
Yeah, pregame. Yeah, and I'm trying to remember if I did it for this game, but there are some games where I like to the media lot's up on O Hill, and it's a far walk down. It's a pretty steep decline, but there are
Yeah.
some days when I'm like, all right, I'm gonna walk down and just kind of see what the atmosphere is like. Because I think it helps me as a writer and as
Mhm.
doing my post game and all that stuff. I think it helps me just kind of get a sense of all right, how does this feel? And so, yeah, I think I walked down for the Florida State game and the Tech game. And yeah, like you could feel it. Like you could feel there was a little bit of different buzz in the crowd. And I say that, I'm hoping I did a story last year. I think it was going into the Wake Forest game about attendance and all that stuff. And what Eric Ward with UVA had told me is like, um, Virginia was in kind of an uphill battle to sell out football games because the season ticket allotment just wasn't that great. And so if you
Yeah.
don't have a lot of season ticket holders, it's hard to sell out a game. And
Yeah.
so, the hope is, that season kind of propels more season ticket holders. So maybe you can get, to 60,000 and get, some bigger numbers in there going forward. But yeah, it definitely like I think the fan base overall, and I mentioned earlier, like you would have taken a 7-8 win season, the Bad Boy Mowers Bowl or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a point in the season where the offense was struggling. They were still winning games. You think back to like Washington
I was going to
State.
say Washington State.
That's probably the biggest example. Cal was another one. You think back to some UNC,
Yep.
and a lot of people were like, "Gosh, this team is just like it's not getting it done." I'm like, "They're winning football games, guys. Like that's more than anyone's used to around here in a couple years." So, and it's similar with basketball. Just like the expectations change as they um, go past I guess what the preseason expectations were. And they're like, all right, well, now we should win every game and going forward.
The one thing I hope that never changes is the appreciation for this, and I hope we never get used to it because, man, I don't know about you, standing out there after the Tech game, obviously no one was getting going anywhere, and it was frigid. especially for someone who's in Florida like myself. But man, I don't think I've ever seen a group of 50,000 people so unbothered by cold weather in my life.
No, yeah, no, yeah, and that's it. It was so special just seeing the fans and especially the players and how they reacted to it too. Like I remember, I've gotten to know Chandler Morris a little bit throughout this year and his dad and his family and everything, and seeing him like stand on the field for a long time after
Yeah.
both Florida State and Virginia Tech and take pictures with every kid, every student that wanted to come up and take a picture with him. Like it was cool to see the players enjoy that, and then also getting beyond the field in the Gator Bowl, because I think that kind of gets lost in everything. Is it was really a good into the season too, and I know
Oh
the
yeah.
ACC championship didn't go the way a lot of people had hoped, and they don't win the ACC championship in a year that they probably could have, but to go beat an SEC team and play the style of football that they did in that game, and missing the pieces that they were, like Jamari Taylor and
Yeah.
Trell Harris. And I thought that was really impressive. And see the kind of elation on those guys' faces after the game. That was really special. And that's why you cover the sport, man. Like you cover it for moments like that to
Yeah.
see everything kind of build up to it. Like my favorite thing in the sport is writing feature stories on and telling guys stories and stuff like that. And like that, I feel like for me and hopefully for fans when they read those stories, they get a different level of appreciation for these guys and kind of what has led up to this moment for them.
Yeah. I mean, after the Gator Bowl, I had a chance to get down to where the family and friends were and meet some of the guys and meet some of the families. And you could tell they were as appreciative and as enthusiastic about what had just occurred as every one of the fans were. And they understood the
Yeah.
moment. And it was awesome being able to meet those guys. And you could just see how much this year meant to them just as much as it did to all the fans. And, getting to meet all those guys, like the 2025 Cavaliers, those guys are as good and as rootable for as they seem on paper. I will confirm that.
Yeah, and I said it all year, like there were no, you know, yeah, they had like you had Jamari Taylor on the first team all ACC, but there are no stars on this team. Like it was a team that was, kind of the sum of its parts, not just
Yes.
the one guy that was kind of doing everything for them. Like it kind of it took every little piece kind of rotating in the cog to make it go.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you want in if you're Virginia going forward. Like, yeah, you would like some star players, I'm sure, but you want to continue to building this kind of cog, this machine that keeps on kind of trucking with the right pieces in place.
Yeah, I mean, it was next man up to the nth degree, whether it was Drake moving over to center, whether it was Eli Wood stepping up the way he did, like so many different people really making impacts in a really special way. And, you know, God willing, Cam Robinson has a full healthy year. Like, I think that has,
Yeah.
like, he has a chance to be a star in a way that I don't think will subtract from the sum of the parts style of play that we have. And I think like we were talking about with the recruiting aspect and the transfers, we got a bunch of guys that are hungry to win football games.
Yeah, yeah, that's what happens. I mean, you go out and get guys that want to come in and be part of that. Like it's so tricky. And this is the part that it's kind of Virginia's secret sauce at this point is finding the right kind of guy in the
Mm,
transfer portal when it goes so quickly. And we'll see, if this group can follow up to last year's act as far as the impact that they made. But what made last year so impressive is like you look at the kind of the leaders on last year's team: Chandler Morris, Jamari Taylor. You look at, Drake Metcalf was 2 years ago as a transfer, but Mitchell Melton on the other side, Daniel Rickert, Devin Neal, like those guys kind of came in and made a really big imprint on the program. And so that's like the toughest part about the transfer portal is you don't have that much time to really get a gauge on like, all right, is this guy going to fit culturally with us? And so that's kind of one of the hardest parts. And that's what they do. Like the visit, like half the times the visits are as much about the recruits figuring out the school as the coaches figuring out the recruits too.
yeah, that Sunday morning conversation on any visit, or whether it's in the week in the transfer portal, Saturday you go see the school, you have time, you have fun, you meet the guys, and then Sunday morning the parents and the coaches convene with the player and they're like, let's figure out what this actually is. And
Yeah.
it, to your point, it seems like Virginia has a very clear idea, whether it's the game tape or how they act on campus. They have a clear formula of like, this is the guy that will work in our air fuel mixture on this team.
Yeah, for sure.
Preston, I have maybe the most important question to ask you. This is a question we ask every guest on the 4-3-4 defense. This makes or breaks every episode. Preston, what is your Bodo's order?
I know it off the top of my head. It's turkey on everything with provolone bacon, horseradish mayo, lettuce. Am I forgetting anything? I think that's it. Yeah.
I've been meaning to assemble the power rankings because every guest has supplied a unique answer, and we'll try and see if we can we can get a
And
comprehensive list of
I'll usually grab a second bagel just for the ride home.
what's the
Usually
second bagel? Are we going with the same
usually
bagel,
a
different?
usually it's pretty simple, just a classic cinnamon raisin with like cream cheese. But man, I we're in Richmond now, and like every day, my wife like there's no bagels like Bodo's.
No, there really
And
isn't.
I'm like you're right. So anytime I'm up in Charlottesville, like if I don't come home with a bag of Bodo's, then I messed up.
The the biggest compliment I ever think I saw Bodo's get was my girlfriend's mom is from New Jersey. Like
Oh,
they're very
okay.
hoity-toity about their bagels up there, and for
Yes.
good reason. Man, I took her to Charlottesville for the Virginia Tech game with my girlfriend, and she was like, "Oh, we got to swing back around and get a bag so we can bring them back to Florida." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so we've got the Northeast seal of approval on that."
Yeah, yeah. No, I lived in New York for one summer, and so I've had New York bagels, and I love them. But Boda's is probably the closest you can get outside of New York.
It's a special thing, when people hear you say, "Let's go to Charlottesville, we got to get the bagels there." People are like, "What on earth are you talking about?"
I know it. It's
I
crazy.
I asked Jake Malasek this, and he he had the same answer as I did. And this is going to become a running thing, I think, as well. Have you ever seen anyone going to the Afghan kebab across from the football facility?
It's so funny you say that because I have sat at that light there countless times because of all the times I have to go over there for interviews or games or whatever. And I just sit there and I'm looking at it and I'm just like, how's that thing still there? Like, but no, I maybe one time. It's actually a funny story. I don't know if I've ever told this before, but I don't know if you remember back in what year was that? 21. It was the year that Virginia or the NCAA had the basketball tournament all in Indianapolis.
Yes.
And Virginia was going into that knowing that they had a player that had COVID, which
Yes.
eventually we found out was Justin McCoy. I was at that stoplight and I saw Justin McCoy walking over by the Afghan kebab. Um, and so I was like, oh, it must not be him. And then I get there and I'm actually the one that broke the news that it was Justin McCoy. And I was like, I guess he was free to roam around because he didn't need to go to Indianapolis. But that's just a side story. But yeah, that's funny that you mentioned the Afghan kebab because that's what I think of.
That place has been there. I'm pretty sure that was there when I was like 4 years old, riding around in Dr. McHugh's
That's
Gator
wild.
golf cart. And I still don't know how it's working over
And
there.
you think of all the things that have come and gone. I mean, my personal favorite, Little John's on the corner, like it's
Yes.
come and gone multiple times now, but like that was my spot. And yeah, somehow the Afghan kebab that's still going, but Little John's,
I, I
R.I.P.
I haven't had the food, so I can't have a fair assessment, but I will trade it for Wild Wing Cafe reopening.
Oh
I think that's
man,
that's the trade I'll make any day.
don't get me started on Wild Wing Cafe, man. I think I might have been one of their very last customers before they closed.
Really?
Yeah, like I didn't know they were about to close, but man, we're this was back when I was working in TV. Our station was like right next door to them, so I went there all the time.
Oh my God, there was no better play. That was our spot after a game. Like we'd go meet
Nope.
our dad down at the facility, and like we'd be like, all right, we're going over to Wild Wing Cafe, and like we're gonna celebrate the win. And just there are so many places in Charlottesville that you know bring back like those incredible emotions. Hopefully over the next couple of years, as Virginia continues to ascend, the new places, whether it's three notched or whether it's Ralph
Yeah.
Sampson's joint, like hopefully those places can fill the ones we've lost and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, onwards and upwards, I guess, right?
I guess so, man. Yeah, it's a good time for UVA athletics, and it's been a really fun season, a year to cover, man. Like, it's always better, and like this is, it's made me so grateful for getting to cover Virginia athletics again. For a while, it was kind of a strain, but like it's made me
Right.
grateful because it's fun. Just the conversations that I've had this year on the podcast, like it's been crazy. Just the people that we've had on. I think back to I'm gonna blank and miss on some names, but some national people coming on the podcast, people from the ACC, people from ESPN. Some of the players we had Chandler on
Yeah.
before last year, and it's been a really fun ride to do that, and it's awesome seeing more guys like yourself get into the space. Like I always go back, like Ahmad Hawkins, that's the Podfather for UVA. Like
Yes.
he's the one that showed me the way.
All respect to Ball Hawk.
Absolutely. I give him ups every time he comes on, but that's the guy right there. So yeah, it's so cool to see others like yourself getting into this, man. So I appreciate you having me on, and I've already said like we got to book the return trip. You got to home and home now. Got to have you back on the Who's On podcast because
Absolutely, man. I'm
come
I'm
football
100
season.
I'm 100% looking forward to it. Preston, thank you so much for your time. To our viewers, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed what we do here at the 434 defense and you love Virginia football, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Preston, where can the good people find you? Because you make just incredible stuff on the Who's On podcast as well as your written content on the Saber.
Yeah, saber.com. Everyone's been on it, even if you didn't realize you were on it. You've been on the saber.com. And I run into people all over the country. There's like, oh, yeah, I'm a Virginia fan. I do this. I read the saber.com. Do you know what that is? I'm like, yeah, I do know what the saber.com is. Yeah, so the saber.com, you can find our articles and podcasts and everything. And then Who's On Podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts. And we got some good ones coming up. We're obviously in the middle of basketball, but got some good football ones coming up as well. So I hope everyone tunes in.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. So, Preston, thank you so much for your time. To our viewers, have a great night and go Who's.